Welcome back. The Department of Justice says hackers accessed emails in its agency during the SolarWinds breach. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency says hackers guessed passwords to gain entry to government systems. Elisabeth Braw is a visiting fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. She's writing about the SolarWinds breach in Defense One. Elisabeth, the title of your piece is "The SolarWinds Hack Doesn't Demand a Violent Response." And you write this: a massive chorus of voices is calling on Joe Biden to hit back hard. Deterrence is needed, we're told. Here's the thing: we already have deterrence. What deterrence do we already have, Elisabeth?
Well, all countries have deterrence all the time. It's what they communicate to the world that they are likely to do in case of an attack. So with the SolarWinds hack, I think it's important to remember that what we know to date is that it was an espionage operation. It wasn't. It didn't go beyond that. It didn't disrupt, the hackers didn't disrupt the networks they got into. So I think we can assume from that U.S. deterrence is working. The hacker chose not to go that extra step that they could have gone. Of course, we can't prove that. But the thing is that if we on the basis of what we know now, if we retaliate massively, we don't have a way of stepping up in case something even worse happens.
You write in this piece something that I think people have danced around in talking about SolarWinds but have not expressly said. The United States and other Western countries, too, engage in espionage. That's the question that's been in the back of my mind throughout all of this. How much outrage and how much action should we take, given the fact that, if we're honest, we're probably at least trying to do the same things?
Well, that's exactly the situation. And yes, it sounds bad that the Russians have infiltrated all these government agencies or have hacked into all these government agencies' servers. But the reality is, in espionage, you try to get as much information as you can. The US is, as you said, trying to do the same thing. Other countries try to do the same thing. And if the US retaliates in a massive fashion against this hack, well, imagine what the Russians will do when they discover a US hack of this proportion, or maybe not as big as this one, depending on how good the Americans are. So I think it's important to remember espionage has gone on forever. It will continue going on. This is just a new way in which it's done. And it's in no country's interest, if we are honest. It's in no country's interest to punish the other side, because then the other side will punish back. And
that's what you allude to in this line. Deterrence rests on credibility. And you cite Dr. Strangelove of all movies, and I appreciate that reference. Deterrence is the art of producing in the mind of the enemy the fear to attack. That's really what we're going for here, not the actual attack itself, it strikes me.
That's right. So when people say, "Oh, we need deterrence," what they mean is we need retaliation. Well, retaliation is when your deterrence has failed. So you need to indicate before anything happens that if you do what you're planning to do, then you will be punished. And then, ideally, if deterrence works, the other side won't do it. But if your threat is so massive that it's disproportionate to the attack, then the other side won't take you seriously, which is, for example, what happened ahead of the first Gulf War, when President Bush reminded Saddam Hussein that the U.S. had nuclear weapons, and Tariq Aziz, the Iraqi foreign minister, handed the letter back to James Baker and said, "I'm not going to take this to Saddam Hussein," because it just was out of proportion.
You use a term here that I would like you to define and explain how it applies to what you're proposing. The term is asymmetric punishment. What's that mean, and how does it fit this narrative?
So it means that you respond not by wrapping up the violence or the aggression, but you respond in a different way. So if the other side attacks by means of a cyber attack, you can do something completely different. And so the point is that you have to be unpredictable. Obviously, you shouldn't be unpredictable as to whether or not you will respond, because if that's the case, then it's easier for the other side to attack. But if you don't communicate whom you're going to retaliate against, in which manner you're going to retaliate, and when you're going to retaliate, that increases the uncertainty. And the surprise factor is is really what's central to deterrence, that keep the other side in fear, and if they can't know how you're going to respond, of course they're not going to dare to conduct that attack.
We have about a minute left, Elisabeth, but those emotional responses and the mental ideas take me to the end of your piece, where you write, deterrence is not primarily about weapons, it's about psychology. That idea, that unpredictability, that uncertainty and fear are the most important elements of that psychology, I would imagine.
Yes, it is. And so it doesn't matter whether your tool is nuclear weapons, or whether it's cyber hacks, or whether it's sanctions. It's how you communicate that you will retaliate, and it's better for the other side not to attack. So to instill in the enemy the fear to attack, it's back to Dr. Strangelove again.
Elisabeth Braw, thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.